So you're kind of looking for some hacks to actually save some money, or you're maybe wondering what things might be costing you a bit too much, which is preventing you from saving money in the first place. Well, don't worry, because I'm always here for you. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about 15 things I stopped buying to actually save some money. So the first thing I stopped buying, which actually has helped me to save money, is something that you may not be expecting, but it's the fact that I stopped buying debt. Now, the reason why I'm specifically talking about this is, for example, if you took a credit card and you were only paying the minimum payment, you would end up having to pay interest, obviously depending on the credit card that you have. Now, that interest is going to cost you money, and the longer you leave it, the more money you're going to end up giving to your credit card company rather than having it for yourself. I don't really have enough money to pay for this, but my credit card does. So that is one thing I refuse to do. So no matter what I'm buying, there is no way I'm going to be using high interest debt to buy any of it, because for me, it's just not worth paying that interest. And the money that I would potentially be paying the credit card company or the car finance company or the bank, whoever it is, that money that I would have been paying in interest, I can then actually use it for myself, and inevitably I would be saving money. Now, the second thing I actually stopped buying to save more money is something that I never really used to buy that much in the first place, and that is coffee or tea. Now, personally for me, I'm not actually a coffee drinker, but I do know a few people that tend to buy coffee quite a lot, and actually you'll be surprised at how much that can add up as well. Now, in terms of not actually buying coffee or tea, because personally for me, I'm pretty much a tea drinker, I basically decided to stop buying that, mainly because I was reading a book. I think it was called The Latte Factor by David Buck, and it was really about small things that can actually end up adding up over time, which you could potentially use to save or invest, for example. So I'll definitely link that book in the description below if you want to check that out. But it really helped me to understand that even if you're only spending £4 to £5 a day on coffee, for example, if you're actually buying that 5 days a week and being aware that I'm only talking about one coffee, for example, that could potentially start to add up. But Auntie B, who doesn't like freshly made tea or coffee? Now, am I saying don't ever buy tea or coffee? Definitely not. I think there is always a time where you do want to treat yourself, for example. But what I'm saying is maybe you can think about reducing the times that you do go for tea or coffee. Now, in David Buck's book where he talks about the latte factor, it may not be tea or coffee. There's just small things that maybe add up that you tend to buy that maybe you don't actually always need to buy. So for example, if you're always going out to lunch every single day, and let's say you're spending £10 a day just for lunch, is there an alternative way where you can actually make some of your lunch at home so that you don't have to spend it at work, for example? So there are different things that you can potentially look at, that you can reduce and find alternative options. The third thing I stopped buying to actually save some money is not going to the supermarket all the time. Now, this is something where I used to do at university a lot. So randomly, if I just wanted like a packet of popcorn, if I just wanted a snack, I would then go to the supermarket. So I might go on one day to do my grocery shopping on Monday, but then on Tuesday I'll go to the supermarket again to go and get a snack, and then on Wednesday I'll get something else. Now, the reason why this actually made me spend more money is because whenever I would go to the supermarket, for example, the snack wasn't going to be the only thing I would buy, because then I would see all this other stuff, which I'm pretty sure supermarkets actually put some things in the front of the supermarket so that you can actually be enticed and actually want to buy it. And so that's when I would then end up spending even more money and purchase things that I hadn't even planned for in the first place. Okay, so on Monday I'm gonna go Asda because I really need to get my snacks, but then on Tuesday I'll go and get my milk and bread from Aldi, and then on Wednesday I'm just gonna take a trip to Tesco just to see if there's anything I like. So one thing that I actually decided to do is I would only go grocery shopping probably once a week, sometimes twice a week if I do run out of certain things, but mainly I would just go once a week. And obviously I would then have my list, so I know exactly what I want to buy, and then take that list obviously to the supermarket and then actually purchase all my things, because then it meant that I was less likely to actually just be randomly spending money. And I really saw this when I was going into my bank statements as well, because I saw all this money just coming out, you know, like £5 or £6 over there every single day, and I had no idea why I was spending that much money on things that I probably didn't need. So that is something I would definitely recommend if you do want to save some money there. So the fourth thing that I stopped buying to actually save some money is really buying annual memberships when it came to things like gym memberships rather than monthly. Now, the main reason why I did this is because I actually do tend to go to the gym. So for example, if you know that you probably don't go to the gym at all, or maybe you go, you know, in January you go a couple of times, and then by February you've kind of fallen off and then you don't go again, I probably wouldn't even bother buying a gym membership, to be honest. It might be something where actually you want to get a pay as you go because you don't know how often you'll be going. Okay, there are definitely great deals at this gym, but will I actually go? But in my case, because I know that I do tend to go to the gym often, obviously prior to lockdown, for me it was actually cheaper to get an annual membership, so I'm paying yearly rather than monthly, because you do tend to get a discount. Now obviously not all gyms are going to do this, so obviously you want to do your research and find out what is best for you, but that is definitely something that's helped me save some money over the year. So the fifth thing I stopped buying to actually save some money is not buying subscription services, because what I do find is that some people not only just have one subscription service, but they end up having a whole load of different ones, and that can also also add up during the month. Now for me, I'm definitely not saying, you know, not to have Netflix at all, for example, but I would probably think about how many things are you actually subscribed to and do you actually use all of them. So for example, rather than actually using Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime and all of that stuff, could you potentially just pick one and be content with one and just enjoy that? And so you know that you have that one cost every single month rather than having 3 or 4 different costs coming out every month. I mean, YouTube is free. The next thing that I started buying to actually save some money is really not buying new mobile phones. Now for me, the main reason for this is because, for example, with iPhones, they tend to come out every single year, and so they tend to be quite expensive as well. And I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to my phones, I don't really tend to have to change my phone every single year. Usually my phone will at least last a couple of years. So for me, I tend to buy actually refurbished phones, and that's something I've definitely mentioned before, but it can also save a lot of money because usually depending what class you get, you can actually get ones that are basically almost brand new, but they don't have the new element, and so their price is a lot cheaper. Okay, so I could get a brand new iPhone 11 for £599, or I could get a refurbished, which is excellent, for £449. I know what I would choose. Now there are a range of sites that you could potentially look at. So for example, I used to buy some of my phones from Envirophone. I've also bought it from eBay. Just make sure you do check the reviews on that as well. But there are also other sites that you can potentially look at if you literally just search refurbished phones. You know what? It works like a charm. And for example, on Apple, they also do refurbished phones as well. So that's potentially something you can look at. Obviously with Apple, it's slightly more expensive, I found, compared to other websites. But if you do really want to just buy from Apple, that is potentially an option. Now, the next thing I stopped buying to save some money is really something where I call it convenient food. Now, when I'm talking about this, I'm really talking about food that I don't necessarily need to do much work on. So for example, you know, buying grated cheese or actually having chicken strips, for example. So rather than actually grating the cheese myself or actually cutting up the chicken myself, if you were to buy that packaged food, for example, it's probably going to be slightly more expensive because again, they're giving you that convenience where you don't have to do it. So rather than actually buying that, I would prefer to actually just buy it, you know, the cheese itself or the chicken itself, and actually just do the work myself. Now, of course, that's probably going to take a little bit more time compared to actually just having it all sliced and diced for you. But for me, actually, you do end up saving a bit of money, and especially if you look at it over time, you can potentially make some savings there. Yeah, but grating my cheese just feels so long. But you know, it's really going to depend on how you actually want to save your money. So the 8th thing that I stopped buying to actually save some money is buying drinks at restaurants. So rather than actually going to get a drink, for example, you know, whether it's a soft drink or whatever it is, those are usually premium prices when it comes to being at the restaurant. So for me, I'm not gonna lie, I am content with having tap water, and I will happily ask for tap water as well. The reason why I do that is because again, it's a bit of a premium, and you would be surprised at how that can actually add up, especially if you do have more than one drink at the restaurant. Yeah, can I have a lemonade for my starter? I'm probably gonna need bottled water for my main, and yeah, I'll probably get a green tea with my dessert. So if I do want to make some little savings here and there, especially if you are going to the restaurants all the time, let's say you're eating out at least maybe twice a week or once a week, that can also add up during the month. So for me, I would probably rather have my drink at home and then I will just go and have water at the restaurant. But again, it's just a suggestion. You don't always have to take it. If it's maybe a special occasion, then you may decide to have that drink, but maybe think about how often you're actually buying drinks at that price range as well. So the next thing I stopped buying to save some money is actually holidays. Now, I am definitely not telling you never to go on holiday ever at all, but what I'm really talking about is if there's a situation where you could potentially either save money on your holidays or decide not to even go on holidays at all, you can potentially make massive savings, because I found that the amount of money I was spending on holidays, being aware that you're not only just thinking about the flights and the ticket, for example, you're probably going to be thinking about transport when you're there. What are you going to be eating? Are you going to be going on any forms of entertainment and things like that? Those costs can really add up, and you can end up actually spending thousands of pounds just going on that holiday. So there are two options that you could potentially do with this. For example, the first one, you could maybe not go on any holidays at all, but what you could also potentially do if you do want to make some savings is actually think about the holidays that you're going on. So for example, could you potentially go somewhere in Europe, particularly if you're from somewhere like the UK where it's fairly close? Could you potentially go there instead of going to the US, for example, which is probably going to be a bit more expensive? So really think about, you know, the holidays that you're going to, and think about the cost, not just the flights and the hotel, for example, but actually think about the total cost as well. Yeah. Goodbye Bora Bora then. Personally for me, I do think you can make some massive savings, especially if you do your research. So the 10th thing that I stopped buying to save some money is expensive petrol. And I think this is something that I've mentioned before, but I tend to really look at the petrol prices because again, you would be surprised at how much that can actually add up. And even those few pence can make a difference as well. So something that I tend to do is whenever I'm trying to buy petrol, I tend to use a site called petrolprices.com. So I'll definitely link that in the description below for you if you do want to check that out. It's pretty much free and it basically just gives you a list of the petrol stations around your area and which one is cheapest. And for example, in my case, I've actually seen that certain supermarkets are likely to be cheaper when it comes to petrol prices than other petrol stations. So for me, I do think I've made a bit of a saving there, and especially again, if you're looking at the long term and over time, you could potentially make some good savings. Now, the next thing I stopped buying to save some money is really using Uber or paying for taxis in general. Now, of course, if there are certain situations where you do actually have to get a cab, for example, then yes, you could potentially use it. But what I found is that with a lot of people, rather than, you know, getting public transport, they would rather just take an Uber because they obviously think it's more convenient and it's quicker, which yes, of course it is. However, you would be surprised at how much you could potentially be saving if you decided to take public transport instead. Who wants to take public transport? That is long. Now, obviously for a lot of us, we have actually been in lockdown, so we probably would have been at home for a lot of the times. But what I would say is actually look at your bank statements before lockdown, especially if you knew that you took Ubers or taxis or anything like that. If you took them very often, really look at your past bank statements and see how much you were actually spending on those Ubers. And so if you find that you spent a lot of money on Ubers, that might give you a sign to think about reducing the amount of times you actually use that, especially when we are easing out of lockdown. Now, the next thing I stopped buying to save some money is something that I mentioned earlier in the video before, but it's to actually stop going out to lunch during work. And really, I'm specifically talking about all those lunch dates that you might start having with all of your colleagues. Again, this is something where pennies really do start to add up depending on how often you're going. Yeah, but Sally wanted to quickly go for a lunch date and I just couldn't say no. Now, if for example, you're only going out, you know, once every few weeks or once a month, for example, that's very different. But if you're literally going out to eat with your colleagues every single day, then that's when really the pounds or dollars can start to add up. So for me, I would always just try and limit how many times you would actually go out. And again, if you do want to go out to the park, for example, or you do want to go out with your colleagues, an alternative is really just bringing your lunch with you. And obviously if they do want to buy something, then that's up to them. But for you, you have your packed lunch and you can still have that catch up with your colleague. So again, that's something that you could take into consideration. So the 13th thing that I've stopped buying to save some money is really buying unnecessary clothes that you're only going to wear once. Now, the reason why I say that is because before I used to buy clothes where I would literally just have this one event that I was going to. And so I would buy clothes for that specific event. And then when another event came up, I would then go and look for other clothes that I could then buy. So what I was doing is essentially just buying clothes again and again where my wardrobe was then piling up and not realizing that again, the pennies are going to add up, especially if you are only wearing that once. So now what I do is I actually think about, okay, where else can I wear this to? So if I'm specifically looking for a dress or something that I want to wear out, I'm also thinking, okay, am I likely to recycle this and wear this again? If I'm not, then I'm not going to bother buying it unless it's a very, very, very special occasion, which obviously doesn't come up that often. I can't recycle those clothes. People will notice. But what that really does is make me think, okay, what about the clothes that I currently have in my wardrobe? Because I do know there are some clothes that I've never even worn, but then also how can I actually recycle it again? So it saves me from actually having to spend more money buying those clothes. The next thing that I want to talk about that I stopped buying, which saves me money, is buying things just because they're on sale. Now, this is something that I would say I definitely had a problem with in the past. I used to just buy things literally because they were on sale. I hadn't even thought about whether I'd actually need it or whether it would be useful, but because it was, you know, 50 to 60% off, I decided, oh, that's a bargain, I've saved money there. When in reality, I haven't actually saved that money, I've spent that money, especially if I'm buying things that I don't even need. Oh, that watch is 25% off. So are the trainers and the jacket too. Now, I will say that it took me a while probably to get through that mindset and not just think about things that are on sale. So the one thing I would say is think about your purchases whenever you see things on sale. So then the next thing I stopped buying to save money is linked to actually what I was talking about before, but it's really to just stop impulse buying and actually planning my purchases. So again, rather than buying things on the whim because you feel like you need it, I really just take the opportunity to actually sit down. First of all, I've already made a plan for it, but if there's something where I feel like I might need it but I haven't really thought it through, then I will use the 72-hour rule, for example. So I wouldn't actually buy it for another 72 hours. Then after the 72 hours, if I do actually realize I need it, then of course I can purchase it. There are also other small things that I would do. So for example, I don't really tend to subscribe to any newsletters from different stores. The reason being is because I don't want to be bombarded with all these new things going on telling me that I need to buy this or that it's a 50 or 20% sale, just because again, I don't want to to impulse buy. So I really want to be able to actually go to that store knowing what I want to buy and having planned for it first before I think about just buying everything because I essentially want it. Yeah, but who wants to plan for purchases? Well, of course it's always up to you, but I have really found that actually planning for things well and understanding what I need can really be beneficial, especially when it comes to my money. So if you did like this video, then please do give me a thumbs up, as it really does help to support the channel, and let me know in the comments what are some of the things you stopped buying to save money. I do post every Tuesday and Friday, so if you would like to know more, then of course you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.